Don't.
Bloop boop boo. Bloop doop doo. Bloop doop da boo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Molly.
I'm Michael.
And this is I Love This Blank. Oh my god, I don't know how to do the intro. A channel where we talk about things that we love, including music, video games.
So Molly is a famous video game hater. And I am a famous Counting Crows lukewarmer.
One of my favorite things from 1993, and really from the 90s, and really from my life, is the Counting Crows debut album, August and Everything After. And Michael doesn't care. So the goal today is make Michael care about the Counting Crows debut album, August and Everything After. A lot of us know the singles from this album. Mr. Jones was sort of the hit single. Rain King was another big hit.
That was a single?
Round Here was as well. It is in that vein of some of the music that we have talked about. Music from the early 90s that is jangly. We're still in the jangly world, of R.E.M., Hootie and the Blowfish. This album, Gin Blossoms.
We're not yet in the Hootie and the Blowfish world.
No, but they're coming. Get ready because we will be talking about Hootie and the Blowfish soon.
Them fishes will be blowing.
I think what makes this album great are two things. The production by the famous producer T-Bone Burnett, legendary producer T-Bone Burnett.
Who produced things such as...
He's known for a lot of film work, including the incredible Oh Brother, Where Art Thou soundtrack, the soundtrack for Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic. He also produced albums by Roy Orbison, Alison Krauss, Gillian Welch, a lot of these great Americana artists. First of all, I've talked a lot, and I always do on this channel, about like my personal relationship with these records. And I think that is one of the initial reasons why you don't feel strongly about this album, is that you didn't have an early childhood connection to it.
Yeah.
This was definitely a cassette that was lodged in a 3 cassette changer in a car that my family owned and was just like on constant rotation. For like at least 4 years. Let's get actually into the meat of this album. What I like to point to is a lyric on their single, Mr. Jones, that I think defines what makes this album great, which is where Adam Duritz says, I want to be Bob Dylan, right? And I think it's like a thesis for his whole career, which is, I am a lyrics guy, and I am going to write, like we're doing poetry here.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because Bob Dylan also very much a lyrics guy.
Yeah.
But Bob Dylan's chord progressions are very sophisticated.
Yeah, and I think that is interesting because I think this music is musically, harmonically, it's Americana. It's in that Americana vein where, it's that classic like 3 chords and the truth kind of thing.
Which I think is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think part of what makes this album great, in addition to the lyrics, is that they're using a soundscape and an instrumentation that puts you in a very specific sound world. There's a lot of accordion. There is a lot of mandolin. I was joking earlier when we were listening to it that like Peter Buck's mandolin on Out of Time walked so that this album could run. Although, actually, I mean, it was kind of running in Out of Time. Like, they're already at a healthy jog, maybe.
I don't know, because that mandolin line in the song where it's heavily featured is so obnoxious.
Yeah, and in here, it's really more integrated into the texture
I definitely agree
of the
with
music. And so you just really feel like you're just in that world. I also think that Adam Duritz's vocals are so strong. It takes singing along with him to realize just how high the whole thing sits in his voice and how he navigates that in a way that I wouldn't say it sounds easy, but it is continuous throughout the album.
Yeah, and he's not reaching for things he doesn't actually have.
It never feels like it's going to go over an edge.
Right. Which sometimes in certain styles of music, the feeling that it might go over the edge is kind of thrilling. But I think it's more effective here than it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely true.
So I just want to talk about some standout tracks on this album. First of all, the opening and closing tracks on this album are so strong, not just on their own merits, but as openers and closers. It's like There's something about the way you turn on the record and it has that like low hum that then gives way to the do 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 do. That's how an album should start to me. It's like, okay, this is a stretch. The opening of Das Rheingold. What I mean is that, like, I'm not putting Adam Duritz on the level of Richard Wagner. But what I am saying is that it does the same thing, which is it starts with that hum of creation itself that gives way to more and more and more.
Is Adam the sole songwriter?
Written by
The band.
No, yeah, written by all of them.
The band, and looks like the producers too, because the band's not that big, is it?
Well, T. Burton Burnett is the producer, and he's not on that list. No, I think it's not a small band because if you hear all the different instrumentation,
That's interesting because I don't think it warrants having that many musicians in it.
Duritz comes out like right out the gate with poetry, right? Like I think one of the strongest lyrically tracks on the album is this track. On this track, his lyrics are so strong. I mean, they're strong across the album, but this track really showcases the intricacy of his writing. The first lyric that you hear is, "She steps out the front door like a ghost into a fog, where no one notices the contrast of white on white." As soon as you hear that, you're like, wait, what did he just say? Whoa, that's deep. It's metaphors on metaphors on metaphors.
Yeah. What I think might be an interesting angle for us to talk about in this video is how you listen to music versus how I listen to music.
Yeah.
I like good lyrics, and those are good lyrics, but they are tertiary to me. Honestly, when I'm listening to music, the thing that sticks out to me first is the texture. What is the texture like? What are they trying to do with just the general sound world of this? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it jagged? Is it, any of these things? And then after that, melody and harmony are probably about tied. Maybe harmony has a slight edge. Oh, and I forgot about a rhythm. So, okay, but that also like changes depending on what the artist is trying to do. Like certain artists, like if I'm listening to Bjork, I'm not necessarily listening for the most interesting harmonies, although she is very capable of really good harmonies. But I'm listening for texture and rhythm with Bjork first. Lyrics can make a good song better or a bad song worse, but they're never the reason that I listen to music.
As you're talking, I'm thinking of a masterclass that I once sat in on as a singer with famous opera singer, soprano Patricia Rissette, and she was coaching this other young singer. And what she was talking about was that you have to have a relationship with the text as a singer. Memorably, she said, if you're not interested in the text, go play the violin.
Yeah.
I think as a singer, text has a hegemony to me. The text should be driving the music. And I don't necessarily think that about popular music all the time. And yet, when I'm listening to an album like this one that is so lyrically strong and the vocal performance is serving the lyrics so well, it's undeniable.
Though my first instrument is voice, I'm a composer first. And when I compose, the words have to come first. For me, as someone who writes mostly vocal music. And I think of certain artists who are also great lyricists and who also let the text guide their interpretation, like Mitski, for example. Mitski is, I think, a brilliant lyricist, and her performance is very closely tied to the text in a way that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
But I also am drawn to the texture, melody, harmony, rhythm of Mitski songs more than this. Though I do think Adam Duritz is a good lyricist. I think he's a very good lyricist.
And I want to skip to the end because I said I was going to talk about the first track and the last track and how strong they are as first tracks and last tracks. There's something about listening to an album front to back and hearing how it opens and how it closes. And the last track was another single. It's A Murder of One. Part of what makes it great as a last track is that it follows one of the heaviest and darkest tracks on a very heavy and dark album, which is Raining in Baltimore. And so I'm going to backtrack a second to Raining in Baltimore, which is a song in which most of the texture is stripped away. It's mostly just piano and voice, and then eventually that accordion comes in and some other instruments to give it a little texture. But for the most part, it's very sparse. And he's singing this song that is lonely and mournful. You know, I joked earlier when we were talking about it that it's a song that as a teenager, I just like loved to like stare out the window and cry while this song was playing.
Yeah.
I was a very moody and emotional teenager. So you have this sort of heaviest place on the album that then gives way to this bright major chord and a fast drum beat and this hopeful, optimistic sound and hopeful, optimistic lyrics in A Murder of One.
I actually want to talk about just the title, A Murder of One,
Yeah.
and the many things that it makes me think about.
Yeah.
So when I hear A Murder of, I think crows.
Yes.
And it's not a murder if there's only one.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so a murder of one, what else could that mean? A murder of one living being. But then it's like, why would you word it that way? Is it like a Zen murder of the self, murder of the ego type of thing? So I think that's a really captivating song title.
Yeah, and I think the lyrics are reflective of what you're saying. There are themes in this song. I mean, obviously the band is called Counting Crows, and this song actually has a lyric that mentions counting crows.
Yeah, and I have a running gag with my old roommate, Bob, where when you say the title of a thing, that should be smash cut to the end.
Which is so funny because it's not even saying the title of the thing. It's the title of like myself.
Yeah. The band should have broken up at that moment.
So it opens up with this bright major chord, this hopeful sound. And then the first thing you hear is blue morning, wrapped in strands of fist and bone. And I think the idea of morning, of dawn and sunrise, and it's a new day.
Also, there's wordplay in the word morning itself, because
Yes.
you're not reading the text as you're listening to the song. It could be mourning, which ties with blue.
Right. And blue could mean blue skies and sunny, or it could mean blue depressed.
Yeah.
There's so much there, but the song is addressing a person who is in a situation that is maybe not a situation she, and it does sound like it's a she, wants to be in. You have this lyric, are you happy where you're sleeping? Does he keep you safe and warm? Does he tell you when you're sorry? Does he tell you when you're wrong? And it comes around to you don't want to waste your life. You don't want to waste your life. You don't want to waste your life. It's beckoning you toward a change.
How often do we want other people to tell us how we should feel? I think it's an interesting...
Well, it is interesting because I think I certainly don't want people to tell me how I should feel, but I think sometimes being invited to allow yourself to feel the way you already do feel.
Yeah, but I also think that's interesting to tie into arts, especially performing arts, because I think art is a positive spin on emotional manipulation. An artist should be telling you how to feel.
Yeah.
And it's a good case of that.
Yeah. Most of this album is quite dark. The lyrics are quite heavy. It's really pretty emo. And so when it comes around to this place of blue morning, the sun is rising, the sky is blue, everything's going to be okay.
So,
Come with me, you know?
yeah. So that's making it very clear that it's definitely the Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
And I see the light of a clear blue morning.
Yeah, I mean, really, it almost feels like a direct reference to that, right? It's so thrilling. The album then ends with this ambient hum that the album began with. It feels, not to talk about Wagner again. Wagner does this circular thing, right? And I feel like this album does that. And it's really exciting to me, and I feel like it's thinking about it. It's not just putting tracks on an album and putting them in whatever order feels right. It feels very calculated in that way.
Especially hearing your thoughts on it is leading me to believe that this whole album is very well crafted music that I just don't really care for, which is okay.
We all have that. I think that's one of the things that makes this album great is that it opens so strongly and it ends so strongly. So when you start this album, you're like, yeah. And then when it ends, you're like, yeah, let's do that again.
I'm going to give you charades clues.
Oh, God.
You need to do sometime in the middle of the video, the calls to action.
Oh, if you like our content, you should hit the like button. And if you really like our content, you should hit the subscribe button. You should look at our playlists because they have specific topics that you might be more interested in if you're not interested in the other topics. I'm not interested in video games, but when Michael is teaching music theory, he's very good at it. And he had to explain to me the other day why I was wrong about a music theory concept. And I was grateful for that. So you should So obviously the most famous track on the album is Mr. Jones, a song that I have been known to crush at karaoke.
It's also my favorite song on the album, but it's also the one I've heard the most. And I do legitimately really like this song. I think that it's a really interesting melody. I like how Adam's voice sounds on it because he's making all of these big leaps.
Yeah,
throughout.
he dips into that falsetto
Yeah.
at the top.
Yeah.
It is, again, a lyrically complex song. It might have some of the densest lyrics on any track on the album. And, you know, one of the things that Counting Crows is famous for is their live performances. And their live performances are quite divisive for their fans. Fans either love them or hate them. They're famous for never playing a song the same way twice. Adam Duritz will fully improvise new lyrics that have nothing to do with the original lyrics of the song.
Once I saw the band Beirut was playing in DC. I tried to get tickets to the show. It sold out, but then it sold out so quickly that they added another show the next night, and I got tickets to that show with a couple friends. As we were riding the metro home from the show, someone on the same car on the metro with us had gone to the previous night and was complaining to his friends that they played the exact same set in the exact same order. And it's like, okay, well, Beirut, especially during this tour, was touring with like an 8-piece brass band.
Yeah.
Most of the people on stage were not in Beirut.
Yeah.
And they did not have music in front of them. They had this show memorized. You can't expect them to goof around and mix things up. And so I think there are times when it makes sense that an artist does not play with their written music in a live performance.
Part of what my point is that like Adam Duritz, he is such a strong lyricist that he's able to just like improvise this stuff on the spot to varying success. But just the ability to do it is really impressive.
Counting Crows is to Michael as Tori Amos is to Molly.
Yeah.
And Tori Amos also does improvise a lot in her show. She always does a set in the middle of her shows where it's just her and the piano. The other two guys go and chill for a minute. That's where she almost always plays a cover. And it's really interesting to hear what she does in these moments. And I think it's similar to this. But there comes a point, if you watch a lot of Tori's live shows, where especially her covers all kind of start to sound the same after a time. She knows the chords, she knows the melodies, she usually mostly knows the words, and she knows how to do what she needs to do to make the song interesting. But if you actually listen to what she's playing on the piano, it, especially later in her career, starts to sound like, that's the same way she plays this song by this other artist.
It's a formula.
Yeah. And I think with something like Counting Crows, the band is the formula.
Yeah.
You need somewhat of a formula to riff on.
Yeah. Probably the strongest track on the album that was not released as a single, and might be even stronger than some of the singles, or at least on the same level as the singles, which are all really strong, is Perfect Blue Buildings. I think it has the same lyrical intensity as Round Here. It is a song about struggling with addiction, and this is maybe not appropriate, but it almost turns that struggle into something romantic and beautiful, which is kind of a toxic thing to think. I'll be the first person to say that that's problematic. But one of my favorite lyrics in this song, and one of my favorite lyrics on the album, is when he says there's a skeleton in every man's house. Beneath the dust and blood and sweat that hang on everybody is a dead man trying to get out. It's dark. I mean, this song is really, again, one of the darkest parts of a very dark album. It is a song about hanging on by a thread, and he sings it so beautifully. And I think he just explains that feeling so exquisitely.
You were comparing the song lyrically to Round Here. And I think I like Perfect Blue Buildings so much more, partially because Round Here was a single.
Yeah.
And I find his singing obnoxious in that song.
Yeah.
And I can come to a song like Perfect Blue Buildings that I don't know as well.
Yeah.
And I'm able to look at it more objectively. And I don't have the baggage of having listened to it on the radio more times than I would like to.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we buy albums. It's
Yeah.
why we want to hear more from an artist that we love. It's like, you love this song, but maybe you've heard it too many times and you want to hear what else they have to
Yeah,
offer.
yeah, and I think that's interesting because not everyone feels that way. Some people don't have that same curiosity to listen. If they hear something they like, they don't have that curiosity like, oh, I want to hear more.
I know that like my personal pathology is I like a thing and I want more of it, but I'm bored with the thing itself. I want it repackaged. I watched this movie. I want to see another movie that's just like it, but a different movie. And then I get mad that it doesn't exist.
A different costume drama starring Helena Bonham
Yes.
Carter.
I mean, yes. How many different adaptations of Jane Eyre exist? I think what I'll say about this album in general and why I love it and why I keep coming back to it after, 30 years?
32.
32 years. This is an album that I can basically sing the whole thing from start to finish. The reason I keep coming back to it is I discover new things in it every time I listen to it. I think. And it is about the lyrics, and I think that's fine. And the lyrics are so rich that every time I hear it, I go, oh, gosh, that metaphor has a new meaning to me today. Or when he says that line in Rain King, when I think of heaven, deliver me in a black winged bird, I think of dying, lay me down in a field of flame and heather, or render my body up in the burning heart of God in the belly of a black winged bird. It has a new meaning every time you hear it, depending on what kind of mood you're in, depending on what kind of day you've had. What does that mean? Does that mean I have a death wish? Does that mean I have a wish for new life?
I'm going to make a comparison that I don't think is entirely fair, and I don't mean it to sound negative, but
Parentheses derogatory.
basically, I remember when I got Jewel's first album on CD.
Whomst among us does not remember when we got Jewel's first album on CD?
And going to my great grandma's house the day I got it and lying on the floor in the family room and reading through the lyrics and the other poems
and
in
the
there.
poems in the liner notes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thinking at the time, like, wow, this is so deep. And it's like, looking back, it's like, is it deep or is it pretty words? And I'm not saying that that the Counting Crows is just pretty words.
Yeah.
But I think depending on who you are, there's a danger of that tipping.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing about art and aesthetics.
Also, I don't mean to hate on Jewel. I actually really still do love Jewel's first album.
I love it too, but it is
Yeah.
like it's a thing,
it's
right?
try hard. Yeah, it's very try hard.
Oh man, I used to
But I
like
love
just dominate like the cafeteria piano playing foolish games. I just the thing about pretty words or a pretty picture or like whatever is that you can imbue it with meaning. And I think that if it's doing its job right, it should be able to be a vessel for that. Whereas I think there are pretty words that are more empty.
But I also don't want to completely just shit on empty pretty words.
Oh, no.
Because I think that even word salad has a place in music.
It has a place in politics these days, too.
Well, words that sound good are at the heart of so many songwriters.
Well, yeah, think of like the whole like Max Martin of it all,
Yeah.
right? Or ABBA, or like
Or even like what we've talked about many times, pool hopping.
yeah,
So I think like 80% of the lyrics mean something.
yeah.
And the other 20% are just
Filler.
like, yeah, but it's really good filler. It sounds fun. It sounds flirty.
I don't want to hear you say I want it that way. I would be shocked that Adam Duritz doesn't have a very distinct meaning for every lyric he's ever written.
He
and
sounds
I
like the Batman.
also think that they leave space for the death of the author for you to place your own meaning on them. And that is what I think the best art does.
So there's a really interesting recent podcast from the YouTube channel Resonant Arc where they talk about death of the author. And they come to the conclusion that everyone decides that it's death of the author with art I like and bad intention from art I don't like.
Yeah. And don't tell me I'm wrong to think that.
They get more nuanced with it than that, and I think it's a really interesting video. I'll link to it in the description, but I think there's something to that. If you already like it, you can read into as much of it as you want. And even, like, you could read really deeply into I Want It That Way. If you try hard enough, if you're that devoted to that song, you can do it. And I think that's one of the great things about art and interpretation and subjectivity.
And I think that's beautiful. If you don't know this album and you're a person who's interested in words,
Where should they start?
where should they start? With track 1. Yeah, really. Like, I think that this album works so well. It's not a long album. It takes 40 minutes maybe to listen to, 30 or 40 minutes. It is such a strong album to just go on a journey with. If you listened around here and you're not into it, then you're not going to be into the rest of the album.
I disagree.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think Round Here is Adam's most obnoxious vocal performance on the album.
Well, it doesn't have the yeah on it.
But he does have the here.
Oh, it's not that extreme.
I mean, my voice is cracking because I don't have a high voice.
No, but I think if you're not into his voice on Round Here, I mean, his voice is going to do that the whole album.
If Round Here were their first single and not Mr. Jones, I would have changed the channel every time I heard Mr. Jones come on.
Look, if you don't know Mr. Jones, you've probably been living in a cave for the last 32 years. Or
you're
you're
young.
Gen Z.
Yeah. Or Gen Alpha.
Maybe I'm not the best person to say where you should start because I think I'm in too deep.
If you like blank, you would like this album.
If you like REM, maybe. If you like music with accordions, subtle accordions. If you like lyrics that make you listen closely, you want to catch every word.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say if you like the softer side of emo songs, you might like this album.
Yeah, it's Dashboard Confessional.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
If you want to listen to somebody talk about his feelings to music for 40 minutes. Yeah. In conclusion, I like this album a lot. Goodbye. So I guess the things pop up at the end when the video is over that tells you other things that you should watch.
Like
the video that he's pointing at and another video that he's pointing at. Oh, a link to a thing. A playlist that you might want to watch. It might have Michael teaching you music theory. I don't know.
And now you can say,
maintain your groovy self.